What's going on, everybody? Jackson Fuller here, and you are listening to the latest episode of Hoggin the Mic, and we have actual football results to talk about and more games to preview. We'll bring Hutch in just a second to recap the experience at War Memorial Stadium, where Arkansas did what they were supposed to in a 70-0 victory over UAPB. How much are we taking away from that? How much are we using that as optimism moving forward? And of course, we will discuss and preview this upcoming Saturday's huge game on the road against Oklahoma State, a top 20 team in the country. It'll be the first real test for this Arkansas program this season, and an opportunity for them to kind of show that everything that they've done this offseason was to get to this point and have a chance and be competitive and maybe even win a game on the road against a team like Oklahoma State. All that and maybe a little bit of baseball talk as well, since we got to talk with Dave Van Horn earlier today to preview fall ball. So let's play that rock music, bring Hutch in, and get the latest episode of Hoggin the Mic on the roll. Hutch, how are you, sir? Have you recovered from your Little Rock experience yet? Maybe let's just get it taken care of now. The War Memorial Stadium experience, I didn't think it could get any worse than last year, and it probably didn't for the fans in attendance, but the media had a much worse time this year. Just have you recovered yet mentally? Are we still angry about what we had to go through on Thursday night?
Yeah, I've pretty much gotten over it. Although thinking about it now is kind of the feelings are bubbling up again because it was absolutely ridiculous. I know, again, fans don't really care about us, the media, whatever, us in our posh press box with, luxurious, amenities and all that kind of stuff, which, by the way, is ridiculous. But, we didn't have AC, which, again, well, the fans don't have AC sitting out in their stands. Well, y'all also aren't working, and you also prepared like that. Luckily, I was wearing shorts and a T-shirt. I think, Jackson, you were in pants. I saw some other people in pants and long sleeve shirts. Go dress nicely. I guess I've been doing this long enough to where I said I just don't care. I'm all about comfort. But that's obviously those people wouldn't have worn that if they knew there was not going to be functioning AC. And then the worst part of it is the water went out. We did not have functioning toilets. And I was told that was not just the press level, but also all the premium seating. So all the, big money people, the people that you're supposedly playing down in Little Rock for, did not have functioning toilets, functioning sinks, functioning water fountains. That's just bad. That's just inexcusable, to be quite honest. And I know fans, I'm getting off on a little tangent here. I know fans will, say, oh, well, you're just some Northwest Arkansas kid. And yes, I was born and raised in Springdale. I grew up going to games in Fayetteville. However, I will say I loved going to games at War Memorial Stadium when I was younger. I'm talking about the Houston Nutt, Bobby Petrino years where they actually cared about the games down there and they, got good games. And I was there for the second miracle on Markham. I was there when Kobe Hamilton took it 80 yards to the house against LSU as halftime as the second quarter expired. I saw lots of great memories there, but it's not the same. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but it's time to give it the axe and put War Memorial Stadium out of its misery. Let it host the Salt Bowl, let it host state championship games for high school football, but the University of Arkansas should not be playing home football games at War Memorial Stadium, simply put.
Yeah, I don't think I need to say anything more than you just kind of said. I agree with what you laid out there. Obviously, I'm not a Northwest Arkansas person. I'm not an Arkansas person. I've lived here for a year now. My only, the thing that I would say is, does any Power 4 school play a regular season home game in a stadium as poor as War Memorial? I don't know, maybe, but that number is going to be very, very small. It's just the facility is. Look, man, I this second straight year, I am literally staring at the parking lot, and I'm told I have to turn around and go the other way. And then I get to where I was told I was supposed to go, and they said I can't go that way, so I have to go do a big loop. And that's just getting to the stadium. It seems like, the people that are working the game in terms of management of the flow of traffic, in terms of a lot of things, it seems like they're just not people that are used to doing this more than once a year, and they're just really not used to doing it once a year. So it just feels like it's a tradition that has kind of passed time by, in my opinion. And if they want to host the game there moving forward, just let's develop some facilities. Let's get some people in there that know how to run a big time event like a SEC football game. You only get a handful of those every year. They're huge events. They're the biggest things that happen probably on the campus of Fayetteville every year, and there's a reason why it's hard to pull those off. You've got to have a great team to do it, and that's something. It just feels like what happens in Little Rock. It's not quite it's just not the most well run event, and not being able to go to the bathroom after the first quarter was a tough scene. So that was pretty disappointing, but it's one more year, and then hopefully it's done. And I think it feels like there's some momentum building from inside the program as well, because Sam Pittman said the political thing when he had his press conference yesterday, but he clearly doesn't want to go down there and play there. And his reasoning is not necessarily for the stadium or anything like that, but it's Arkansas gets to play one true home game in the first 5 weeks. And it's been a reoccurring issue for this team in recent years, especially when they do the home opener down at Little Rock. You get a lot of travel early on, and we'll see. It impacted them last year, that's for sure. It was a negative last year, and I think it was a reason why they started off so slow was just the schedule that they had. We'll see if that rings true this year or not. All right, let's get to the game. 70-0. It was a little while ago. I mean, we're recording this on Tuesday. By the time it comes out Wednesday, it'll be a full week. So we don't have to talk too much about the ins and outs of the game. Hopefully you read all of our coverage on southwesttimes.com for me and bestofarkansassports.com for Hutch. I guess, Hutch, my question for you is, did the first game change did you have any opinion change based off what you saw Thursday night in Little Rock?
Absolutely not. And the reason being, UAPB is quite possibly the worst college football team I've ever seen live. And I've been to a Division III game before. I've been to an NAIA game before. And I can confidently say that team was terrible because, yes, it's an FCS team. You're supposed to beat those anyways, but they are a bad FCS team. And probably worse, I mean, they probably would have had a better game playing Harding, the reigning Division II national champions just up the road in Searcy, rather than playing UAPB. So I don't think you can put any stock into what we saw. Yes, they scored a touchdown on every possession. Yes, they shut them out. It's the first time you've had a shutout since 2018. That is, it's a stat, but I really don't think you can put any stock in that whatsoever just because the level of competition was just so bad.
It's a stat might be the bare minimum for something being a stat. It's a stat, but it's not really saying much. I'm with you. It didn't really change anything on my outlook on this team. I will say the one thing that I think that I am a little higher on Talon Green after Thursday night, and because I think he had some accuracy issues early on. I mean, the first pass should have been intercepted. He missed a couple of wide open guys on a drive in the first quarter. But I think I knew that was going to be an issue, and that despite anything that the coaches and stuff had told us, an inaccurate quarterback doesn't become an accurate quarterback over one season. There's still some issues with his footwork and everything, but the athleticism, the speed, and stuff like that. I know it was UAPB, but just seeing it in person and seeing his ability to create when maybe there's nothing going on a passing play, but also his ability in the read option. It seemed like anytime they ran a read option, it was a huge gain either for himself or for Jaquindon. I definitely, it was just nice to see it in person, and I think that there's going to be avenues for Petrino to hide the inaccuracy issues and to maximize his running capabilities. And I think that's something that I expected, but just being able to see it play out on the field, I think that I'm a little bit higher on Talon Green maybe than I was on the drive down to Little Rock Thursday. It's not much, but it's a little bit, and I'm really excited to see what he can do against Oklahoma State. We'll get to that a little bit later on. Hutch, some position battles, that we kind of watched unfold all of camp. And then to see TJ Metcalf walk out as the starting safety over Hudson Clark, Nico Davier over Anton Junkaj, and Nico has gotten so much praise from Sam, immediately after the game and in the kind of the days afterwards. And then Cuddy Robinson, the cornerback. I mean, I think it's cool to see, these position battles kind of you watch them all fall and then see who the winner is, and then I think it's a good sign that guys like Metcalf and Davier won those position battles, over Hudson and Junkaj. And I think as far as the cornerback one, I think that's going to last a little bit longer. But I do kind of see, even if the or on the depth chart might remain there, I see TJ Metcalf and Davier a little bit ahead of their counterparts, whereas at cornerback, I see it more of still an open competition. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's probably an accurate way to put it. And I will say this about Metcalf: like I've been very high on Metcalf all fall. I thought that he had a very good chance of surpassing Hudson Clark on the depth chart at some point. I was a little bit surprised that they gave him the nod in week 1. I really thought that was going to be like a, hey, we're going to give it to the veteran Hudson Clark, let him start in a relatively meaningless game against UAPB where it didn't matter who was going to start. And then, maybe I could have even seen it in week 2, them going to Metcalf based on what happened against UAPB. But for them to go ahead and go week 1 with Metcalf, I thought was really telling. So I thought that was interesting. That was probably my biggest surprise among the position battles, except for maybe at kicker with Ramsey getting the nod over Shipley. I still, even after asking Sam Pittman about it on Monday, like the reporters, I still don't quite get that one. But yeah, I could easily see. I mean, it sounds like they like what they have in Robinson. I think he may be a little bit more ahead than maybe you kind of believe he is, just based on what Pittman has said. But yeah, I could definitely see a battle still going on there. And I think this weekend against Oklahoma State will tell us a lot more about that, because yeah, I mean, they've still got Jalen Braxton, but they like to stretch the field vertically. Oklahoma State does. That's an explosive offense. Going to really pressure that secondary, and I think that'll give us a little bit more answers on who can they count on to shut that down.
I'm in the process of double checking this now, so I'm going to take some time and just say a lot of words before actually getting to my take. But I do think on Pro Football Focus, let's see if I was right about this. Oh God, you gotta have to scroll further down. But yeah, Jaheim Singletary did have the highest grade out of any of the cornerbacks not named Jalen Braxton that are kind of fighting for that number 2 spot. Of course, it was UAPB. We got to take everything with a grain of salt. The reason for his higher grade was he just had a better tackling grade, and tackling was a problem for this entire defense on Thursday night. 11 missed tackles against UAPB is not something that not a good sign at all, because the competition's going to get stiffer starting this week with Ollie Gordon. One of I guess the big surprise is R-Dub, really. Like, that's probably the biggest surprise, and it was not really a starter, but he was listed as a co-starter on the initial depth chart, and then we got the one for week 2 against Oklahoma State, and he's 4th string, and he came in as the 4th running back against UAPB. Do you think that this is a health thing, or have Braylon Russell and Rodney Hill kind of passed him already?
Well, if you asked me last week, I would say it was a health thing. But now, just kind of having a week to think about it and really kind of see how it all played out on Thursday night, like, I think it might be them sending R-Dub a message. Like, I think maybe he was banged up, and that gave Hill and Russell an opportunity, and they've made the most of it. Now, is that going to stay that way? I don't know. But man, that's tough for R-Dub. As the one guy returning from last year's running back room, that would really stink for him. But it would also be good for Arkansas if Hill and I think we know Jaquindon is going to be the number 1 guy. I think that was pretty much expected. But if Hill and Russell can be better than what we thought Dominion was going to be, then I think that's a good thing for Arkansas's offense. I really like Braylon Russell's potential. So hopefully we get a nice, healthy dose of him this year, which probably wasn't going to happen if he was, 4th on the depth chart. Maybe if he's 3rd, maybe we get a little bit more than we would have otherwise.
Yeah, and I think Braylon Russell is going to be the second, if he stays healthy, will be the second leading rusher on this team out of the running backs. I think Jaquindon will be number one. Taylor Green will probably be the number two rusher overall. But I think Russell is going to be have the second most rushing yards out of the running backs. The staff is so high on him. The players are so high on him. He was here in the spring. There's no real if he's ready. There's no sense in kind of holding him back and let's kind of throw him to the fire. I'm really excited to see what he can do this week against if what his role is this week against Oklahoma State. Going to be a more physical matchup than what we saw, against UAPB on Thursday night. I imagine Jaquindon's going to get more than 8 carries, but I wonder if maybe the carries behind him are maybe less spread out and more focused in on one particular backup. That's something I'm going to be watching for, and I think it might be Braylon, but who knows? Pittman definitely surprised us a little bit with some depth chart and roles on Thursday night. Maybe he does the same thing against Oklahoma State this week. Defensively, you mentioned the shutout. There's really nothing I can take away from the defense because the defensive line was just so much better than UAPB's offensive line. It was a complete mismatch there. I did like Marion Harris at guard. Sam kind of said he got bold, and I took that as a negative. You didn't kind of take that as a negative as much as I did. I've rewatched the game a little bit, and I just thought Marion played well. So maybe I think I'm going to lean with you right there. It wasn't like a negative. It was just an observation that they tried to bull him. But, especially the sweep to Jaquindon that he scored a touchdown on. I mean, Marion was one of the guys that was kind of leading the blocking and setting that. I think if Kudus comes back, he's going to have to fight for that job. I don't think it's a given right now. If Patrick Kudus was healthy this week, he'd start over at Marion. I think that the coaches and the team kind of likes the makeup and the chemistry that this starting offensive line has. That could all disappear one bad performance against Oklahoma State, but for now, I think that's the case. What did you make of the offensive line? And I know I started this by saying, what did your mind change at all? And you said absolutely not, but maybe we're overanalyzing. But what did you think of the offensive line against UAPB?
Yeah, I thought the offensive line just did what they were supposed to do. Overpowered an inferior opponent, which is what you want to see. And I agree about Marion. I'm also growing every week that goes by, growing more and more concerned about Patrick Kudus' long-term health as it pertains to being able to play this year. The back injury, it's not a good injury to have as an offensive lineman. It's something that he's had in the past. So not worried. I'm worried about him being able to return. That's just my gut feeling. That's not any inside source or anything like that. But I mean, as you said, Marion, I thought did well. I was listening to a little analysis by Cole Kubelik, the ESPN analyst who is a former offensive lineman himself. I believe he played at Auburn. And he singled out Marion Harris. I mean, he said left guard. He didn't say his name. He said, the left guard showed a lot of I can't remember exactly what he said. It was a lot of promise, but still had some technical things that he could improve. And to me, that's a good thing. I mean, he's still young. It was his first career start. He's got, Coach Pittman, one of the top offensive line coaches in the country, is kind of helping him there, as well as Eric Mateos. So I feel like he's going to only improve from a technical standpoint. Throw that on top of his God-given abilities, I think he'll evolve into a pretty good offensive lineman right there at the left guard spot. So I feel like Marion Harris is the guy, and even if Kudus does come back, it would take something happening, I believe, before he got back into the actual starting lineup.
Yeah, and he's the guard right now, but he's pretty much been a tackle throughout his high school collegiate career. So it makes sense he's got a little bit of fine tuning to do on the technique and everything moving inside. He's so big, and that can only that can be a hindrance at times if you're going up against a speedy defensive line and you need someone that's maybe a little bit more athletic, but size usually is a benefactor up front. And Marion is clearly, I think he's one of the bigger guys on that entire starting offensive line. Again, the test is this weekend, so let's jump into this Oklahoma State matchup. I believe they're 18th ranked in the coaches poll and 17th ranked in the AP poll. the spread right now, according to FanDuel, who I know is not legal here in Arkansas, but I kind of like going to some of those major books just to see what more national book is seeing. Anyways, the spread is 7.5 in favor of Oklahoma State, and the over under is 62.5. So they're expecting a lot of scoring. Do you think it's going to be high scoring, Hutch? Because it's like this Arkansas offense, I'm still not 100% confident in it. I have more confidence in their defense than I do their offense. I guess that's just a matter that Oklahoma State, the style of play is usually a high scoring game. What are kind of your expectations? What are you most intrigued to watch about this game this Saturday?
I do think it would be more of a offensive, high-powered game more than a defensive struggle for sure. I just think that Oklahoma State's offense is really, really good. I think Ollie Gordon is one of, if not the best running back in the country. He's a guy that is a really physical runner. I think he led the country and forced missed tackles, according to Pro Football Focus last week. That's not a good mix when you throw in, as you said earlier, the tackling issues from Arkansas. That's not a good combination. I do think Arkansas has a chance to kind of slow them down, but I'm not 100% sold on the secondary just yet. We talked about who's going to be the guy opposite Jalen Braxton. That's going to be something we have to watch this week, because I think they are going to be a team that tests Arkansas vertically, and they've also got a veteran quarterback who's not going to make mistakes, and a veteran offensive line that's not going to make mistakes. As Sam Pittman put it, they're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to go head to head and beat them yourself. So I like that. And then on the flip side, I mean, Oklahoma State, I think, has a decent defense. I'm not trying to trash their defense by any means, but there were a few times in that South Dakota State game, which I watched most of, and South Dakota State had a few opportunities for some big plays, but they didn't quite connect on it. So, I mean, it's going to require Taylor Green to have clean up the accuracy issues that he had early on in that game. They can't not capitalize when they get a big play. So I think that's going to be something that Bobby Petrino can kind of scheme around and scheme up some opportunities for big plays and hit a few big plays here and there, and you're right there in the game ready with an opportunity to pull off an upset. So I could see some points being scored. I'm not 100% confident Arkansas can slow down Ollie Gordon.
Huge game for the linebackers, I think. Arkansas has talked all season or all off season about all fall, definitely not in the spring, all fall about their confidence in that group, how they felt like they, revamped the room in a meaningful way. They looked pretty good in, throughout fall camp and in week one. But, 11 missed tackles, that number against Oklahoma State, it's got to stay at that number probably. You don't want to getting too far up. Huge test for Brad Spence, Xavier Sorey, Steven Dix, Anthony Switzer, those guys to, when they get an opportunity to wrap up Ollie Gordon or even one of the receivers coming across the middle, they've got to make that play. I just think I'm really interested to see what Travis Williams' game plan is this week. It feels as though Arkansas, the defense isn't quite top to bottom. I don't know. I don't have confidence that Arkansas can just line up and stop everything. So I wonder if maybe T. Will is going to decide, all right, we're stopping Ollie Gordon, and if you beat us over the top, you beat us over the top, and that's kind of what we're going to live with. Or maybe he decides, well, I don't necessarily trust my secondary as much as I trust my defensive line, so I'm going to play a bunch of cover two. You're not going to hit me with the long ball. We'll let you get 4 or 5 yards of pop on Ollie Gordon, but we're not going to let that big play happen, and we're going to, keep you guys in front. I don't know what he's going to do. I think personally, I would maybe lean more towards that second option, especially when, Ollie Gordon had a big statistical game if you look at the box score, but he averaged less than 4 yards a carry against South Dakota State. Like, maybe there is an opportunity there to kind of minimize the big plays from him, make him pick up 3-4 yards at a time. And if you do good enough in your red zone defense, you can hold them to field goals instead of touchdowns. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just going to line up straight and do, what he's done and be aggressive with blitzing and, kind of mix and match. And But I think it'd be smart if they try and take one of those away, whether that's the deep pass from Alan Bowman or Ollie Gordon in the middle running at them all the time. Do you? Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. How much do you think that this game is kind of going to be a marker for the rest of the season for the Arkansas offense? Because I don't think the Oklahoma defense, like you said, they've got a good defense, but it's not great. And Mike Gundy historically has not, when they've had great defenses, they've been like a top 10 team, but for the most part, they've had some mediocre defenses. I mean, do you see that any way for Arkansas maybe to have an edge when it's their offense against Oklahoma State's defense?
I think the fact that it's Bobby Petrino, I think gives them a little bit of an edge. We actually ran a piece written by a freelancer for us, I believe Adam Ford, who pointed out that Oklahoma State's defensive coordinator doesn't exactly have like the best resume, like biggest resume. I think he came from like a D2 school, and this is only his second year at Oklahoma State. So that's an advantage Arkansas, in terms of schematics. I still am not 100% sure kind of what I would feel a lot better if I knew for sure certain Andrew Armstrong was playing. I'll tell you that. That's something else we got to touch on. It sounds like he's still questionable for this game. He did, I guess, put out a tweet that made people think he's playing. I don't know. I don't understand the young kids these days. But I would feel a lot better if he was playing. And I think it's all going to boil down to Taylor Green. If his accuracy, he can't miss. Like if they dial the deep ball and it's open like it was the first play against UAPB, he cannot underthrow it. He needs to hit Tyrone Broden in stride and jog down to the end zone and celebrate a touchdown. Otherwise, it's picked off and going the other way. So I think that they could have an advantage. It just requires Taylor Green being sharp and Bobby Petrino doing his thing.
Yeah, so that tweet he put up was, I can't even find it now because, of course, his name on Twitter is not Andrew Armstrong. It's Drew 2 Bands or something like that, I think. Drew Bands 3. Yeah, he put up, I don't know what TV show this is from. I think it's from Naruto, The Last Airbender, and it's somebody fully healed, I think, is the gist of it. So he seems to be insinuating that he is fully healthy. Pittman said he was questionable. I would be stunned if he doesn't play Saturday. I think he'll be out there. And I agree with you, though. If he's not out there, then I become very concerned because that is something I wasn't. If we want to talk about nitpicking and one concern from UAPB, I did not love what I saw from the Arkansas wide receivers as a whole. Taylor Green, I think it took like 2 or 3 drives before he even completed a pass to a wide receiver. It was Luke Haas and throwing to running backs. It felt, it was weird to me seeing Jordan Anthony get more snaps than Isaiah Satenia. Very weird to me. That's not a good sign, I think, because Satenia's, definitely the more highly thought of player of those two in terms of his high school recruitment, what coaches and us have expected. We've seen Satenia be better in fall camp than Jordan Anthony. I don't know. I still am a little concerned about the wide receiver room. They had such a difficult time getting open last year, and part of that was the offensive line. But I think that's going to be a huge thing to watch this week and moving forward, and it'll help a lot if Andrew Armstrong's back healthy, like you said. How do you think this team is handling the pressure, Hutch, of this moment, this game? It's kind of a turning point and an inflection point, if you will, on the season. It feels like if they win, hey, get the banners out. Fayetteville's going to be very, very much amped for the upcoming football season. If they lose, it's going to be more of the same. Like, do you feel like they're feeling the pressure at all? I got the sense from Sam a little bit yesterday when Bob Holt asked him a question about the offensive line and their opportunity. I kind of got a sense that, he wants to forget about the past. And to me, while that's good and that's coach speak, I don't mind a team kind of acknowledging that and excited about the pressure. It seems like they wanted to ignore that. How do you think this program's kind of dealing with maybe the spotlight that's about to come on them? Big week 2 game, ABC. It's like I said, fork in the road moment, it feels like, for the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to get too good of a feel for it since practices are closed. We haven't talked to any players as of this recording. We'll get to talk to a few on Zoom this evening. That will have already happened by the time you're listening to this. I thought, after the game on Thursday against UAPB, again, it's a 70-0 blowout against a glorified high school team, and Taylor Green and Jaquin and Jackson seem to be in a pretty good mood. There was a time where I think Bob Holt asked a question to both of them, and Taylor Green gave this long, thoughtful answer, and then Bob was like, "Hey, Jaquin, you have a thought on that?" And Jaquin was like, "Man, you're gonna have to repeat the question because he talked too long." And Taylor was all, like, "Man, the Hogs won. It's our first win." Like you could, it seemed genuine, genuine excitement out of those guys. And so I think that they're looking forward to the opportunity. I don't know if there's necessarily there's going to be nerves and pressure anytime you go into a big game, but this is why as Sam Pittman said, this is why you come and play in the SEC. It's for games like this, and so I think that they're handling it okay. Ask me again in the middle of the first quarter, and I'll give you a better answer.
Good stuff. Well, I want to do something weekly on this podcast. It'll be our Monte Harrison check-in. Unfortunately, the 29-year-old former Major League Baseball player who is now a walk-on freshman had 0 targets and 0 catches. I'm sorry. 2 targets, 2 catches for 29 yards. Against I was so expecting him to catch a touchdown pass. That's why I said 0 targets, because it was like I had a story already written. Monte Harrison catches a touchdown. I was sure it was going to happen against UAPB. This was the moment and their opportunity to get this old man, who's younger than me, by the way, a touchdown, and it just didn't happen. So I guess that my mind was still rattled. 2 targets, 2 catches. 29 yards. We'll have an update on his stats every week here on this podcast. So, Hutch, there's really not much else to say. I think that UAPB, we kind of covered it as much as we could right now. And Oklahoma State, we're all in wait and see mode. I was just talking to another writer that covers the SEC, and he was kind of asking me, like, what's the vibes in Arkansas? And I think the fans are excited about what they saw, but I think if you ask them honestly, there's a lot of I'd have no idea what to expect this Saturday against Oklahoma State. And I kind of feel the same way. I could see them getting absolutely blown out, and I could see them every little shift that they made in the program with the roster and the coaches and everything this offseason works out, and they come out and look great and get a win. So with that said, what's your prediction for this Saturday? Are we'll go on the record. I'll go do one myself, but what do you think happens in Stillwater this weekend?
Unfortunately, I'm still picking Oklahoma State. Again, as I said earlier, I'm not going to let anything that I saw against UAPB influence my thoughts. And before the season, I picked this as a very close loss for Arkansas, another 1-possession loss. To me, Sam Pittman has to prove to me that he is capable of coaching the team to a win in those kind of games. I know they beat Florida in overtime last year, whatever. Until they do it consistently, I have a hard time picking it to happen. Now, it wouldn't totally surprise me if they pull it off, but right now I'm picking Oklahoma State close. So I guess I would say Arkansas covers the 7.5 point spread, but I just feel like it's going to end in heartbreak.
I'm with you. I think Oklahoma State's going to win, and it's going to be close. But I will say, I think first quarter, everyone who listen to this podcast, just take a note of how Arkansas's offensive line looks against Oklahoma State's defensive line. If they look competent, if they're creating holes for their running back, if Taylor Green has time, I do think Arkansas is more talented than Oklahoma State at a variety of spots. I think they have the better defensive line. I think, they have the better quarterback in terms of explosive plays. I know Alan Bowman, 7th-year senior, and he's a terrific, quarterback for that system, but more of a game manager. I think Taylor Green has a higher ceiling. Oklahoma State definitely has the better running back, but that's a position that's gotten devalued in recent years. So for me, it's going to come down to that off. If the offensive line wins the battle against Oklahoma State's defensive line, I think Arkansas will pull off the upset. But right now, even despite what we saw Thursday, I still just don't believe in this Arkansas offensive line just yet. And they're going to have to, like you said, Sam's going to have to prove you that he can do it. This offensive line is going to have to prove to me that they can do it before I'm really picking them in these, road games against a ranked opponent. So when are you making the trip down? You're not headed down till Saturday morning. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm going to ride with a couple of guys and leave super, super early Saturday and then come back afterward.
I will be making a drive to Tulsa Friday night and then just straight home Saturday after the game. But should be fun. Never been to Stillwater. Excited. Orange is my favorite color, so I'm looking forward to being surrounded by that beauty and everything. So should be a fun weekend. Thank you guys so much for listening. We'll kind of cut it off there. We will try and, I think Hutch will try and get this pod out maybe a little earlier than Wednesday moving forward, just Labor Day weekend, the massacre of UAPB. We could delay our reactions and everything. But moving forward, we'll get this out a little earlier than Wednesday, so it's a little bit more timely recapping the previous game. But of course, this week it was all about looking forward to Oklahoma State for the most part. So thank you all so much for listening, and tune in next week for the next episode of Hoggin the Mic.